Hello and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel, and in today's episode I want to talk all about how you can manage your weekends. When it comes to the weekends, they're like the biggest downfall for so many of you. It's a really big limiting factor to achieving your goal because no matter what you do in the week, it gets to the weekend, different routine, challenging situations, and it just throws you off. And it's kind of like every single weekend you're just leaving so much progress on the table. And I think with the weekends, what people fail to realize is that it makes up 42.9% of your week. 42.9% of your week is the weekend. Okay, that's counting Friday, because typically on a Friday it's the end of the week, and that Friday evening especially is where we can do extracurricular activities, we can socialize, we might have a date night, whatever it may be. So if we're looking at the weekend as Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which for most of us it is, that's 42.9% of your week. So just by sitting on that fact, can you now see why you struggle to consistently lose weight, why you struggle to feel like you're able to get to the place that you want? Because every single weekend it just trips you up. But that's nearly half of your week. So hopefully now you can see the importance of actually learning to manage your weekend. And when it comes to managing your weekend, I feel like so many over 30s have this perception that, that means that, I've just got too much going on. I socialize too much. I'm away every weekend. I like to go out and, do things with my family, with my friends. So like, there's just no possible way that I can, stay on track, lose weight, prioritize my health. And so what's the point? And it's such a false perception of what the weekends can be. And I feel like where weekends can be someone's downfall is, one, if you believe that they're just too hard to manage. And second of all, if we're kind of, if we're in that place where we're not happy in ourselves, we don't like the way that we look, we're not really, we stop and start with our fitness journey, we're on and off the bandwagon, we're yo-yo dieting, we've got that unhealthy relationship with ourselves and, our health, our fitness, our body, our mindset. It's very easy to use weekends as a form of escapism. Suddenly the working week is done, you're burnt out, you're fatigued, you're stressed, you kind of, unhappy with how you are as well. So the weekend just becomes an opportunity to eat, to drink, to hibernate, and to just, fester, melt away. And then, Monday comes. But actually, if we can try and flip that narrative and stop using weekends as a form of escapism, but actually see them as an opportunity for fulfillment, to actually help you prioritize the things that are going to make you feel good. They're actually going to help you rest, reduce stress, feel better in yourself, so that when the working week comes, you're in a better place anyway. Then what's going to happen is you're going to start to capitalize on the 42.9% you're leaving on the table every single week. And then you will open your eyes up to what is possible, because you're creating so much more opportunity to progress, to lose weight, to, drop your body fat and just get to where you want to be. So the weekends can be make or break for many of you, and I want to help you to manage that. So the first thing that I always encourage every client to do when it comes to the weekend is you have to win your morning. Okay, you have to win the morning. So the first meal that you eat, movement in the morning, some form of exercise, but just waking up on a Saturday morning and making sure that we win the day. We win the morning, so we win the day. We win that first meal. We wake up, we have a nutritious breakfast. The first thing that we do, and this leads nicely onto my next point, is that move first, sloth later. I'm all for relaxation over the weekend, for, watching TV, having some downtime, 2 o'clock onwards, just switching off, monging around a bit, pottering around the house, happy days. But if we can have the mindset of like, get up and get it, the early bird catches the worm. That doesn't mean getting up at 5 a.m., but that just means seizing the day. Okay, moving first, sloth later. Then it's the best of both worlds. You're actually starting your day on the front foot, feeling inspired, doing things that align with who you want to be, and actually controlling your weekend. Because if you're starting your weekend with a nutritious breakfast, with movement, whether that be a workout or just a walk, just building that into your plan, maybe getting up and getting a food shop, for example, just doing things that light your fire, that align with who you want to become, that's going to put you in a great headspace. That means that by lunchtime on Saturday, you're feeling a lot more goal conscious. You're feeling proud. You're actually a lot more energized and motivated. That's going to make you a lot more accountable over the weekend. So move first, sloth later. That is the weekend mantra, and really focus on winning that morning. Saturday morning is absolutely key because it sets the tone for the rest of the weekend. Now, obviously, if you're away, you're away for the weekend, you're seeing friends, that can cause a little bit more disruption. And I think sometimes when there's a disruption, it's easy for your all or nothing mindset to kick in, where you think, well, it's not a perfect situation, we're seeing people, we're doing things, so it can't happen. But this is where I want you to challenge your way of thinking and think about, how can I still control elements of the first part of my day, because it's going to be massively important for me, my mindset and influencing everything else I do, the day and the weekend. Because even if we're away for the weekend, we can still prioritize getting an early morning walk in. We can still prioritize eating a good breakfast. So move first, sloth later, win the morning so that you win the day and the rest of the weekend. Focus on that movement, focus on that nutritious food to really get you going. So that's one of the big things. Now, another thing that we can look at when it comes to the weekend is how we can actually focus on like not letting perfect be the enemy of good. Because, if you've got children like myself, or you've got a busy social life, you're probably going to be out and about. You're going to be seeing people, you're going to be, and that's going to involve eating. So sometimes, because if we've got a day when we're out for lunch, it's really hard to track it. I don't know how to manage it, and then you just kind of get lost down this rabbit hole and you end up neglecting all of the things that you can control. So when it comes to nutrition, I want you to think about, it's important to enjoy yourself, but also remembering that you've got a goal, and we want to essentially make an informed decision that aligns with what we want to achieve. So if our goal is weight loss and we want to, feel better, if we're going out for lunch, it's about making better decisions. You can still go out for lunch and enjoy that connection with your friends and family, but at the same time, if we make it if we choose foods that are maybe more nutritious, or we make a better decision, we don't have a dessert, just little efforts of discipline and kind of conscious effort and acknowledgement of your goal, you will feel like you're showing up so much more. You will feel like you're in control, that you're trying, that you're putting the effort in. And remember, consistent effort beats perfection. Okay, it's the effort that counts. And in doing that, you just feel so much better. You go out, you feel empowered, you're not worrying and then feeling like you're restricting and guilty, and you just break that cycle. Something that I've talked about in one of the videos before is principle-based nutrition. This is such a simple thing that you can do when you're eating out. You don't have to worry about tracking that meal. Even if you're eating at a friend's house, you're seeing your parents, whatever, you can follow this. So principle-based nutrition is where we look at choosing a protein-dominant meal. So if you're out in a restaurant, we're looking at meals that are higher in protein. So for example, you'd opt for a seafood pasta because there's a good amount of protein in that, as opposed to just a pizza that might have a little bit of meat on top, but it's more carb based. Okay, so always trying to choose a protein dominant option. That's the best place to go. Now, depending, if you're at a cafe, they might only have sandwiches, so you've just got to make do with what you can. But choose a protein dominant option. And if you're eating at eating at a friend's or family house, typically protein's involved, and it's just making sure that we have more of that on our plate. So we choose a protein dominant meal, and we also want to make sure that there's some veg. Most meals come with veg or salad. If not, can we get a side salad to add to that, just to make sure that we're bulking up with good food that's going to fill us up. Then all we want to do here is eat the meal in this certain order. This is so important. Eat the protein first. So if you're having a seafood pasta, eat the seafood. If you're having, steak and chips, have the steak. Eat the protein element of the meal first. Okay, not always possible if you're having like a lasagna, if you're having a pizza, I get that. But it's just making the best that we can. But typically you should be able to eat the protein first. What this is going to do is extract all that goodness. Protein is the most filling macronutrients. It's going to actually fill you up a lot more. So that's what we do first. Then we want to eat the veg second. Okay, we've filled our plate with veg, with salad. We want to eat that next, because again, that's going to fill us up because of all the fiber, and we're taking all the goodness from the meal. Then when it comes to the carbohydrates, which is the final thing on your plate, I want you to eat them, but just leave a small portion on your plate, just a small portion. Because you've eaten the protein and veg first, you'll actually find that you're fuller than normal, so you'll be able to leave a bit of the carbs. Typically when we're out and about, it's the carbohydrates that contain the oil, that contain the excess calories that push you over. So by doing that, we go out, we enjoy a nice meal. Let's say you go for a Sunday lunch at a pub, you eat a nice bit of beef, you have all of the vegetables, you've got carrots on there, you've got, sprouts, parsnips, and then, you eat the mashed potato, but you leave the Yorkshire pudding. Or, well, actually, no, never, no, never do that. You eat the Yorkshire pudding, and then, you leave some of the potatoes on the plate. You eat a few, but you leave some, right? That way you've gone out, you've had a really nice meal, you haven't stressed about tracking it or missing out, you've had a good time with your friends, but you've actually eaten to the best of your ability within the goal that you have of losing weight. So you feel amazing. You've had a nice meal out. You don't feel like you've overindulged. That's great. So principle-based nutrition is so good for you to use. It's such a great way that you can eat out at a weekend, feel empowered, feel in control, and actually, even if you are still going over a little bit, if it's a big meal or whatever, you're just getting so much more control back. So that's really helpful. Another thing as well that you can look at doing is picking and choosing your moments. We can't, every time we go out, get starter, dessert, brown, like we can't just go hell for leather every time. It's about picking and choosing your moments. So if you've got an anniversary meal, then yeah, enjoy it. Don't follow principle-based nutrition and just have a good time. But outside of the key moments and the big memories, we want to just pick and choose and make sure that we follow principle-based nutrition and we do exercise discipline, because we have to make some sacrifices short term for long-term gain. It's not a forever thing. So an example, like when I'm out with the girls and my wife, and say we're going to soft play, and it's 10:30, and the wife's like, yeah, should we get a coffee and a cake? I'm like, yeah, I'll have a coffee, but I won't have the cake. Now obviously I'd look, deep down I'd be like, oh, I'd love to have that cake. And I would have that cake, but if my goal is weight loss and to feel better in myself, I know that actually I don't need the cake. I'll have a nice coffee, that'll keep me full, and I'm busy with the girls, I'm having a nice time, it's fine. So sometimes we do have to make small sacrifices, but not to the extent that you think. You don't have to stress all the time about, oh, I couldn't track all weekend, so I just hit the effort button. It's like, well, no, follow principle-based nutrition. Don't track it, but stay accountable, and keep goal conscious. And if you've won your morning by getting a walk in, doing some exercise, you'll feel great as well. So there's some of the key things that we can do to actually start managing your weekend. And what you'll find is when you start to manage your weekend, you feel more in control, you feel more inspired, and actually come Monday, you're like, no, I had a pretty good weekend. Like, I felt fulfilled, I had energy, I exercised, I ate good food, like I enjoyed a few little rewards, for all my hard work, and all is good. And for me, that's one of the big things with the weekend as well. The mindset shift I need you to have is that don't use it as a form of escapism where we overindulge, we binge, we hibernate. Use it as a reward for your hard work. In the week, if you've been on it, doing your workouts, eating good food, sticking to the plan that you're following, it's okay to reward yourself with a little treat over the weekend, something that you enjoy, to go out for food and not have to stress and worry. Like, that's okay. But I think if you're on it 80 to 90% of the time, then the 10% moments when you enjoy yourself, you see it as a reward for your hard work. You're not rewarding yourself all the time, but I know that when it comes to the weekend, as an example, on a Friday night, I absolutely love Friday afternoon, finishing work, going to the shop. We normally get some pizzas in for the weekend or whatever, and we'll get a nice bottle of red, and I'll get a beer as well. And when I have that beer on a Friday at like 5 o'clock, I'm just like, this is great. I've worked so hard all week, I've smashed my sessions, I'm having a nice beer. And then tomorrow morning, I'm up anyway, I'm going to the gym, we're going on a family day out, we're moving, we're doing things, I'm eating well, let's go. And it's just such a nice balance. So yeah, how you kind of perceive the weekends as well is really key. And just, yeah, managing yourself is really important. One of the things that can really help as well with a weekend, typically it's a time when you might have eaten all your food for the week. So if you can do a food shop first thing on a Saturday morning, or on a Friday evening, or maybe on Friday at any point, it just means that you've got loads of food, a fridge and cupboard stocked with good food. So it means that even when your routine is out of sync, it's like, oh, we've got chicken for lunch, or oh yeah, I can have high protein yogurt and blueberries for my afternoon snack. I don't have to have a brownie, like we've got food in. So that's another great little tip that you can use. But yeah, that's all I'm kind of going to talk about in this video. Hopefully I've given you enough to think about on how you can start managing weekends so you can not miss out on 42.9% progress. That's really important, that 0.9% progress every single week. And when you start to manage your weekends effectively, you'll see how much progress you can make, and it's just liberating. You feel in control, you feel inspired, your weekends are fulfilling, you feel alive and energized, and you start making the progress that you deserve. So hopefully you enjoyed that. As always, if you want to get involved with my free weight loss sustainer course, link in the bio, as well as the link to my Black Friday giveaway. We're a month away until I announce who is going to win 6 months of free one-to-one coaching. And all you have to do is click on the link in my bio and apply. There are 5 questions. It literally takes you 2 minutes. That is it. And you're in with a chance of winning. You might not, but if you do, then it's going to be a life change in 6 months. So hope it's useful. Any questions, let me know, and I'll